What's up, movie lovers? I'm Mike, and this is Gotta Love Them Movies. Oh, you guys, welcome back to another edition of Gotta Love Them Movies, your daily dose of movie news. I'm your host, Mr. Mike Brown. I'm here all the time. And you guys, if you're having a hard time finding this, Facebook, somewhere between yesterday and today, have changed how they stream, or like how you set up your stream in advance. So, so my apologies if you are having a hard time finding this. It's a weird thing. Looks like a couple of people are joining us. So hopefully it's working the way that it should be working. You guys, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time out of your busy days to join us and chit chat about some of our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of stuff. We've got a lot of things to cover today. I didn't think today was going to be as busy of a news day. I mean, like, all the news about Wonder Woman dropped yesterday. Actually, 2 nights ago, it dropped, and the whole internet has just been a hubbub of like Wonder Woman going to HBO Max, Wonder Woman going to HBO Max, and it's also being released in theaters at the same time. So it's the first time anything like that has ever happened. It's huge. It's big news. And I'm sure we're going to be talking about it more at length, in depth. People are going to get nauseated about how much we're going to be talking about it in the future, but it is a very unprecedented thing. We're not going to rehash this situation on the show today. I spent maybe like 25 minutes talking about it yesterday. So if you have a second, go over to YouTube and check that out. And speaking of YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already done so, head over to youtube.com and type in Gotta Love Them Movies in the top right-hand corner. You're going to see a little red square that says subscribe. Go ahead and click on that button. What clicking on that button does is it helps us to widen our subscriber base. But Mike, I understand, like, you're watching this right now on Facebook Live. Why do you have to go to YouTube? Well, with the more people that we have subscribed on YouTube, the more watch content the channel gets. And with the more watch content the channel gets, I get to earn ad revenue, making this my full-time job. So I'd really appreciate your help in that regard. And of course, as soon as we hit 1,000 subscribers, this show will be moving from Facebook to YouTube. So just something to be aware of on your social calendars. All right, guys, with that out of the way, it's time to jump in and take some movie news.
What? What?
All right, you guys, let's jump right in, and with both feet, we're jumping in. It's no big mystery. It's no big wonder to say that, so many movies have been delayed and pushed back, and alternate means of distribution have been talked about. Obviously, we just talked about Wonder Woman yesterday and how huge of a thing that was. There's a lot of speculation still to come out about what's going to happen with Black Widow. But for now, it would appear that Disney is testing the waters. They have 3 pretty high-profile projects in down the pipeline. One of which is, the photo is featured here, Cruella. It is 101 Dalmatians as told from the perspective of Cruella DeVille, played by Emma Stone. Wow, Perfect casting, I think. And then we have the Robert Zemeckis Pinocchio film, the live-action Pinocchio, starring Tom Hanks. I'm a little dubious of that, but, okay, whatever. And then we also have Peter Pan and Wendy, a live-action Peter Pan and Wendy film coming down the pipeline. Well, just today, rather last night. I say today because the show is today, so naturally I think everything happens today, right? Disney has just announced that Cruella, Pinocchio, and Peter Pan and Wendy, all 3 of those live-action adaptations, are going to be released on Disney+. Now, they were slated for a theatrical release, but they are essentially going to be testing the waters and putting them out on Disney+. Here's my 2 cents, for what it's worth. I feel like with the release of Wonder Woman on HBO Max, also being shared with a live theatrical experience, I don't think that it's crazy. It's not crazy to think that Disney is considering putting Black Widow out on Disney Plus. Maybe 6 months ago, that was an absolutely insane thought. Like, nobody would have ever thought that Disney was going to release Black Widow on Disney Plus. But we don't live in that world anymore. The world has changed. COVID has changed the world. We all know this. We all recognize this. I think we all understand this. And I think there's still a lot of people that are pushing against it. And in some ways, myself included. What was crazy, what was impossible 6 months ago, I mean, even just yesterday, because things change day by day. What was crazy and insane yesterday is now a possibility today. And what is crazy and insane today might actually become a possibility tomorrow. So it's not crazy to think that Disney is seriously considering putting Black Widow out on Disney Plus. Now, I mean, are they going to follow a very similar model, a very similar method as what they've done with, Warner Brothers is doing with Wonder Woman 1984? Maybe. They might. Who knows? Maybe. What I mean by that is releasing the film both in theaters and on Disney Plus. Now, what is interesting to say about Wonder Woman, do you remember how I started the show and I said we're not going to talk about Wonder Woman? Now here we are. I think what's interesting about Wonder Woman is that it's only being released on on HBO Max for 30 days. It has the 30-day window that you can watch. If you have an HBO subscription, you can go ahead and watch Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas Day for the next 30 days if you like. You can watch it every day for 30 days. You can watch it 30 times if you want. That would be an interesting experiment, I'll be honest. Where was I going with this? So it's possible that when Disney gets around to releasing Black Widow, that they are going to put it in theaters and try to get some kind of box office. But we already know that Disney has been very forthright in saying, you know what, we're putting Disney Plus at the forefront of all of our plans. Disney Plus takes precedent. This is our first priority. There's the other day I mentioned, maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember. There's a really great video by a YouTuber that I watch almost religiously. His name is John Campia. It's just John Campia on YouTube. Just go check it out. I think he posted the video 2 days ago or 3 days ago. It's Black Widow. You'll see it, whatever. It's like an hour-long video, something like that, where he only talks about the whole Black Widow situation for about 30 minutes. And it's an investment. It's an investment, but I highly recommend you going over to John Campia's YouTube channel and checking out that video, because he breaks down all the numbers to explain why it's likely that Disney is going to release Black Widow on Disney Plus. So why am I talking about Black Widow and Wonder Woman with this article looming? Well, this is my theory. I have a feeling that by releasing Pinocchio, Peter Pan, and Cruella onto Disney Plus when they were originally slated for theatrical releases, that this is Disney's way of kind of testing the waters. How well are these properties going to do? Now, granted, these aren't the high-profile properties that that Black Widow is going to be, that Avengers is, all that. This is not going to be like a Star Wars type, like blockbuster. So the models will be a little bit different. But I do think, especially that there's three of them, they're not going to do the same. They're not going to go down the same rabbit hole of what they did with Mulan. They really screwed up with Mulan. Having that $30 premium charge. If you want to watch Mulan for 3 months, go ahead and pay us $30 and you can watch it as much as you want. That did not go over very well with a lot of people. But yeah, it's my personal opinion. I don't have a lot of fact to base this on. It's just, I mean, when you look at all the dominoes in place, and when we can see the dominoes start to fall, you can somewhat predict what those dominoes are going to do. And I feel that these three films being released on Disney Plus is going to be Disney testing the waters to see how well do they actually do? How many subscribers are we actually getting? Because here's another thing about Disney Plus. They have a massive library, and a great library at that. They have so much on there. And we know from Netflix models, 80%, 80% of all the content that's watched on Netflix is library material. It's not original content. Only 20% of the content viewed on Netflix is original. 80% is library, you know? And when you break that down, when you think about that, with Disney Plus owning all of their own library content, they own it all. They don't have to pay any licensing fees. Netflix pays get this. Buckle in. This is a big number. $14 billion a year. $14 billion a year in licensing fees is what Netflix pays just to have their library available to streamers, or available to people who've purchased a Netflix account. That is an insane amount of money. That's just in licensing fees. That's not taking in consideration their day-to-day operations and however much it costs to pay all the people to, you know, keep all the systems in place and general business, blah, 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 all that stuff. That's just licensing fees. Disney doesn't have to pay that because they own all of their content. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like I said, go over to John Campia's YouTube channel. Check out that video. It's something about Black Widow likely coming to Disney Plus, something like that. It was posted a few days ago. He explains that much better than I ever could, and in much more greater detail too. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where I think that's kind of where I sit. I think Pinocchio, Peter Pan, and Cruella are all films that Disney is going to be testing the waters out. Big question for you guys is, what do you think Disney is going to be doing with Pinocchio, Cruella, and, you know, Peter Pan? Are these properties that are going to be paving the way, maybe, so Disney can test the waters? Are you looking forward to these films coming to Disney Plus? I kind of am. I mean, the world that we live in now, I love the theatrical experience. So anytime that I'm robbed of that experience, I feel like my heart is sad, my heart is heavy. But yeah, I mean, the world is changing. COVID has inevitably changed everything for everyone. So, I mean, this is no exception. I personally am looking forward to see these films. Robert Zemeckis has been losing me over the past few years with his use of CG. I don't like the way that he does it. But hey, I mean, who knows? Maybe Pinocchio will be awesome. What do you guys think? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, let's move on to our second bit of movie news today, and that is Scream. It's time to scream. Apparently, some of the filmmakers from Scream were just recently interviewed. I can't remember what out. It might have been IGN. I can't quite remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So they were interviewed about the new film. Scream has a new title, or rather, Scream 5 has a new title. They released a few images. So let's jump over to the article highlighted here in Collider. Let's check out some of these images. Obviously, this is an original image from the original film Scream, starring Drew Barrymore. But, you know, here's a few other shots here. I mean, nothing revolutionary. Everything looks pretty much the same. But it's also important to note that the new title of the movie Scream 5 is just simply Scream, harkening back to the original film. So Kevin Williamson who was working on the film, he says, "That's a wrap on Scream, which I'm excited to announce is the official title of the next film. Nearly 25 years ago, when I wrote Scream and Wes Craven brought it to life, I could not have imagined the lasting impact it would have on you, the fans." And then as we, that was only one of three. I'm sorry, I totally thought that I had his, you know what, let's go over to Twitter. Let's check out his Twitter account and see what he says here. That was one of three. You guys, I don't know how Twitter works. Here we go. "I'm excited for you to return to Woodsboro and get really scared again. I believe Wes would have been so proud of the film that Matt and Tyler are making. I'm thrilled to be reunited with Nev, Courtney, David, and Marley, and be working alongside a new filmmaker." And incredible cast of newcomers that have come together to continue Wes's legacy with the upcoming relaunch of the franchise that I hold so dear to my heart. See you in theaters January 2022. So that is coming from the director of Scream, who was the original screenwriter of the first film. This is, first of all, this is really sweet, you guys. This is really sweet and touching and endearing. The way that he's memorializing Wes Craven, the late Wes Craven. If you're not familiar with Wes Craven's previous work, I mean, his most famous work was Nightmare on Elm Street, creating the character Freddy Krueger, crafting the story, directing the movie, bringing it to life. Very tragically, that franchise was ripped away from him, and then he was able to return, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, with the sixth film in the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Whatever, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare, I think is what it's called. I think it's called Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. Anyway, whatever number in the sequence of films it was. Yeah. If anybody knows me, you know I hate scary movies. I don't like them. I don't like the feeling of fear. I don't like the feeling of dread. Gore does not bother me. Gore on its own, like dismemberment or like stabbings or whatever, that's never bothered me. The grotesque aspect of horror films is not what scares me. It's the feeling of dread. It's the feeling of fear and terror and paranoia that is put into the viewer. Now, I also recognize I'm one of those people that I get excited by whatever movie I see. I mean, like if it's a good movie, if it's a fun movie, it's something that I am excited to be a part of, even just in a viewership capacity. I put I put myself in the position of oftentimes the protagonist. And I love to go on this journey with them. I love to go on these journeys with them. That's why I love like the Avengers movies. That's why I love Star Wars. That's why I love like Jurassic Park and all these favorite movies of mine, like Blues Brothers and all that. Like I love these movies because these adventures are just so fun. And emotionally, I put myself in the place of these people. Same thing applies when it comes to scary movies. I put myself in the position of the protagonists, whether it's one or multiple, doesn't matter. The movie It had multiple protagonists. And I invest in this journey with them emotionally. I can't disassociate myself from it. Like, it is hard to distance myself. And I think that's why I fan so hard. Because I emotionally connect with these characters and these stories. So whenever I watch a scary movie, there's two types of scary movies. There's multiple types of horror movies. Don't confuse scary movies with horror movies. But there's two types of scary movies. There's the scary movie that does like all jump scares and it kind of scares you in the moment. It's like walking through a haunted house, right? People jump out at you and you're like, gah! And it's scary in that moment. But then once you leave the moment, it ceases to be scary. But then there's the other kind of scary film that instills dread into the viewer. And I think this is the idea. This is the majority of scary movies. Whenever you think of horror movies or scary movies or whatever, it's this feeling of dread that most often accompanies these films. And I can't watch them because they're terrifying, because that feeling of dread stays with me. I keep going back to the well of the movie It with, was it 2017? 18, 16, whenever it came out. It Chapter 1, right? I should have known better. I should have known better. That's it. That's all I can say. I should have known better. But I went into that film thinking, this is more of going to be like a Stand By Me film with, maybe a couple of scary elements, but it looks like a really good movie, and I really wanted to see it. So I went with some of my best friends. And I had, this is no exaggeration, I genuinely had difficulty sleeping for 4 months after watching that film, because in my mind, Pennywise was right behind me. I knew, no, I was in the room by myself. I knew nobody was going to attack me, but try telling that to my subconscious. Try telling that to in whatever is inside of me. I just had this feeling of dread that anytime I turned my back in a darkened room, even if all the lights were on, it was better when the lights were on. And for a long time, for the first whole month, I had to sleep with the lights on. It was so embarrassing, but that's how it was. Can't do it. I can't do it. So all of that is to say, I'm not going to go see Scream. Because the filmmaker has been, multiple filmmakers on this film have been very public in saying, we're trying to be really scary. Like, they love these films. They want to honor these films, and they don't want to just do scary. It looks like Scream 5. I think that's the title that we're all just going to call it, Scream 5, because come on, why are you calling your fifth movie in the franchise the same name as your first movie in the franchise? That's just confusing. Scream 2020 or Scream 2021, whenever it comes out, just call it Scream 5. It's just easier, you guys. I mean, the last one was called Scream 4. Who cares? So, with a return to the franchise, I think it's great that they're taking the time to craft this movie well, that they care enough about the characters, they care enough about the story, they care enough about the scary aspects of what makes a horror film, or a scary film. They care enough about that stuff to actually craft it properly and do it well. And I love that. Anytime a filmmaker has an opportunity, or rather takes the time to execute their vision in a well-crafted environment, I think is a beautiful thing. And it's a rare thing, too. It's a rare thing. Because it's so easy to pump out a scary movie or a horror movie and just be like, it's just a scary movie, whatever. And you put in all the standard horror tropes. I never watched the movie The Nun, but I heard from all the reviews, that's kind of what they did. It was maybe a decent concept, but they phoned it in. It wasn't a clever horror movie. It wasn't a proper horror movie. It was just, cheesy popcorn kind of movie. So I love that they're doing this. I love that they're taking the time to maybe not reinvent the wheel, but polish the wheel and make it beautiful and make it a product and something that people actually want to go to and be a part of. I love that. So anyway, I am not going to be going to see Scream. I will probably get somebody else on the show to go see it and have them review it and let me know what their thoughts are. Question is for you guys, are you excited for Scream 5, not alternately titled, officially? Why am I doing this? It is official. It's not official. It's official. Officially titled Scream. I think that's a dumb idea. But what do you think? I think it's going to be a great movie. I'm looking forward to seeing other people go see it. Yeah, what do you think? I'm very interested to know. Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, it is time to move on to our next bit of movie news for the day, and that is, was it yesterday? We should have talked about this on the show yesterday, because yesterday the trailer to Chaos Walking just dropped. I had an opportunity to see the trailer, and you guys, I'm getting major Hunger Games versus Divergent versus Maze Runner. Mostly like Maze Runner versus Hunger Games vibes here. It looks better than any of those three films that I aforementioned. I think it looks okay. I think this is more, I don't know. Like my knee-jerk reaction is to say I think a younger audience is going to be more invested in this film. But then again, I mean, some of the themes of, well, all the women died, and now this planet is inhabited by men, and also this virus of whatever killed all the women now causes all of men's internal thoughts to be seen, like visually manifested outside of their minds, outside of their heads, hovering slightly above, and everybody can see and hear what it is they're thinking, right? Okay, interesting concept, I guess. Cool. It also kind of reminds me a lot of like what men want or what women want. Okay, cool. Kind of on a weird spacey planet adventure thing. I don't know. I'll probably see this movie. I'll probably see it. But this is not the kind of movie that I will like seek out and be like, I need to see this movie. It looks okay. It doesn't look terrible. It's directed by Doug Liman, and if you're not familiar with Doug Liman directed Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, whatever you want to call it. It went by multiple names, right? I think it was based on the book, and I think the title of the book was All You Need Is Kill, which to me it's a confusing title, but I know a lot of other people love that title. So, All You Need Is Kill, Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, whatever it is you want to call it. It's a fantastic movie. It takes the concept of Groundhog's Day and kind of reinvents the wheel, I guess, a little bit, It was really well done. It was really, really well done. It was horribly marketed, but it was really, really well done. But I don't know. I'm curious to see, what did you guys have to say about the trailer Chaos Walking? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? I'm interested. Jump on down in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, our next bit of movie news today is coming to us from, this particular article is in Collider, but if you were looking forward to the Eddie Murphy sequel to Coming to America titled Coming to America, which again I think is a bit of a confusing title, but whatever. I've got some bad news for you. It's being delayed. What? Yeah, I know. It's being delayed. So Coming to America originally was supposed to come out in theaters next month. There was a little speculation that Paramount wanted to see what was going on with Wonder Woman. Was Wonder Woman going to keep its Christmas Day release? But you know what? Like, we already knew that Coming to America was going to be released on Amazon Prime. They'd already announced that. But there also was the question that, are they still going to release it in theaters? Because all of these deals are now, like, everything. How do I put this? So there was a thing called, in the 1940s, called the Paramount Decree. I think yesterday or a couple days ago, I referred to it as the Paramount Accords, but it's the Paramount Decree. Paramount Decree said there was so many aspects to it. Movie studios cannot own movie theaters. There's also a thing about the theatrical window that you have to wait like 3 months before the film starts playing in cinemas, before you can put it out on like home video release, that kind of thing. There was also all kinds of stuff about like bundling films. Like, all right, you want Jurassic Park? Well, guess what? You also have to take Evil Dead 3. Evil Dead 3 isn't going to make anywhere near as much money as Jurassic Park. Well, that's the deal. I know those movies were put out by very different studios, but you get the idea. Like the bundling of movies to say, nope, if you want to play this movie, you have to play that movie, or 4 other terrible movies, whatever. Not, you understand what I'm saying. And there's a whole bunch of other things of like ticket tiering, price tiering, being imposed upon by the studio. They can't do that. But was it earlier this year? Last year? No, it was last year. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting everything confused. Earlier this year, back in August, the government has rendered those Paramount decrees null and void. They've revoked them all. I mean, there's a few that still linger. I mean, like there's the bundling thing that still exists. There's the ticket tier pricing that still is in effect. They're slowly going to be phased out, but all of these conditions are to say that if these guidelines aren't around anymore, are movie theaters still going to be able to survive and exist? Because they may get strong-armed by the studios, because they can now. Are they? I don't know. It's a symbiotic relationship. You don't want to screw over your business partner, but if you have the opportunity to make more money by screwing over your business partner, I don't condone that. I think those are terrible business practices, but hey, unfortunately, that is what it is. Yeah, I don't condone that. All of that is to say, Coming to America will be released on Amazon Prime in March of 2021. It's not getting a theatrical run, which, again, it breaks my heart. Anytime you have an opportunity to have a movie come out in theaters with a good theatrical run, or at least give it a chance for a theatrical run, right? But they're not taking it. It breaks my heart. It does. It breaks my heart. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, and it's extremely convenient to watch it on Amazon Prime, but I am extremely saddened that this follow-up to such a classic Eddie Murphy comedy is not getting the respect that it deserves. And it's a victim of circumstance. It just is what it is. And I hate to put it that way, but it's true. This film deserves more pomp and circumstance. It deserves more respect. It deserves more of a chance to like really earn some money in the theaters. But the world that we live in right now, that's just not that is not available. That's not an option that's available on the table right now. Anyway, what do you guys think about Coming to America, coming straight to Amazon, and being delayed? Like originally, we knew that it was going to come out on Amazon next month, but they're delaying it 4 months to come out in March. I don't know. Kind of sucks. What do you guys think? Jump on down to the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, we have two more articles to go over. This one was sent to me by Matthew Wiles, a longtime watcher of the show. This particular article, I feel like I talked about this already, but because this is not new news, this has been out for a week and a half, something like that. For some reason in the back of my mind, I already thought that I talked about this on the show, but I guess I haven't. The film A Quiet Place, we know that it was already getting a sequel. The trailer for the sequel came out earlier this year. It looked spectacular. I loved the first one. Again, it's a horror movie. It is not a scary movie. Delineation. It was just a really well-told story with characters that you care about, and it's interesting. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting premise. It's kind of unlike anything that I've ever seen before. And John Krasinski had a really great idea for a sequel. So he went ahead and wrote it. They filmed it. It was supposed to come out earlier this year. It got delayed to COVID. Here we are. Well, now, without the sequel even coming out and being released yet, it is being reported that a spin-off movie is in the works by director Jeff Nichols. Jeff Nichols very famously did the movie Mud, which is attributed to Matthew McConaughey's reconnaissance, kind of bringing him back into the public foray. Let me jump into what Matthew had to say about this. these were his thoughts. He texted me and he said, you heard about the spinoff? Talking about the news that we have right now, and then referring to the original A Quiet Place, which came out, 2 years ago? 2018, I believe. He says, it was a good movie. A sequel is cool, but a spinoff? Unless it's the aliens coming, if you don't know anything about A Quiet Place, spoilers, there's aliens. But I mean, it's also kind of the premise of the movie. Unless it's the aliens coming, not sure why it's needed. Well, I mean, that begs the question, is any film needed, Matt? No films are needed. I mean, we make them because we like them and, they make money. So let's keep making more. But I understand the spirit of what it is that you're asking. Like, this is something that we're not really asking for. It's a world that we enjoy. And I think there's an opportunity here. Here's what this says to me. John Krasinski created lightning in a bottle with the first film. It sounds to me like he's also created lightning in a bottle with the second film, because it hasn't even been released yet. And now the studio has already hired a director, a popular director, a well-known director, a director who's known for putting out good, decent work. Now they've already hired a director to come be a part of a spinoff. And this was his idea. Jeff Nichols is the one who approached the studio and said, I have an idea. This is what I want to do. And of course, he would have had to get the sign off from John Krasinski, because John Krasinski wrote the thing. He created this world. He created this universe. So Jeff Nichols is the one that came to John Krasinski, who came to the studio. I have an idea. This is what I want to do in your universe. I want to tell a story that is not about this family. It's not in this corner of the world. I want to tell a story that takes place in this world in a different corner of this world, right? So if John Krasinski's passed off on this, and if the studio is passed off on this, it must be a half decent idea. It may not be as good as John Krasinski's ideas, but at least the studio believes in John Krasinski's idea enough. Not just his idea. They believe in the film, A Quiet Place 2, enough to say, you know what? Yeah, this bears repeating. Let's see what else we can do in this world. And I say, why not? Is it a waste of time? It might be, because no movie is a sure thing until it comes out. And even then, people pick and choose, like, do you remember when Batman versus Superman came out in theaters and everyone just panned it like, oh, you had your diehard fans. There were most definitely there were diehard fans. But the vast majority of people groaned at that movie so hard, myself included. I did not care for Batman versus Superman. Oh, I did not like that movie. But then I saw it again. And I didn't hate it as much as the first time. But then I saw it a third time. I was like, it's still not a great movie, but I respect it. It's okay. It's too long. It's okay. It's fine. So people come around to certain ideas and certain things. Not to say that this movie is going to have to come around and win its audience later. Win its audience over later. It might. It might be a heaping pile of garbage. It might not work on any level. But maybe it will. I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and find out. And you know what? We still live in a COVID world. Crazy things are still happening all around us. So who knows what's going to happen? This might be a great idea. This might be a terrible idea. This might just kind of be like a meh idea. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Question is for you guys. What do you think about Jeff Nichols coming out and breaking his genre style to actually film a horror movie, to make a horror? And again, like when you say horror movie, it's not like, go super scary. It's a horror movie in the same way that Jurassic Park is a horror movie. Quiet Place, I did not find to be scary. Jurassic Park, not a scary movie. But it's a fun adventure film featuring good creatures. Anyway, I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. Jump on down to the comment section below and leave those thoughts there. All right, guys, this is our last topic of the day. Before we go and take your live comments and questions, you've been firing those in all show long. So before we take your live comments and questions, I had an opportunity. In fact, the other night when we learned the news about Wonder Woman 1984, I hopped on HBO Max, and Kim and I are sitting on the couch trying to figure out what to watch for the evening. And we started scrolling through, and I was originally, I told the story the other day, originally I was going to put on an episode of Harley Quinn, the animated show on HBO Max. Side note, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch Harley Quinn, the animated show on HBO Max, drop what you're doing. It is fantastic. If you're not into crude humor, if you're not into violence, if you're not into people being mean and rude to each other, yeah, you might want to skip it. But if those are things that don't bother you, oh, it's so good. The story, I mean, yeah, okay, it's a cartoon that's full of like violence and cursing. Okay, whatever. Get over that. The storytelling is magnificent. The things that they have to say in such a tongue-in-cheek way is brilliant. I'll probably end up doing a review on Harley Quinn, the animated show, once I finish season 2, because I'm trying to savor it. It's just so good. I love it. Anyway. So I was going to put on an episode of Harley Quinn. And then as we're scrolling through, I saw, there's a thing about the Fresh Prince. Kim was like, hang on, back up. What was that about Wonder Woman? We explored that option of Wonder Woman. And then we're like, well, okay, there's the news. And then we went back to the Fresh Prince and said, hey, the Fresh Prince reunion is out. Let's watch that. So we did. I loved it. Here's what I loved about it. I loved that it was mostly the whole thing was just them sitting together in a like doing a round table, and just kind of talking about their experience working on the film or working on the television show and being on the show and their stories of how that got cast and their favorite moments and this and that and the other. And of course, the whole thing is being led by Will Smith. Of course it is. But man, this was just so enjoyable to watch. It was enjoyable to see them laugh together and celebrate each other and celebrate the show. And then they got into some of the more touching, heartfelt, sentimental, and somewhat tragic moments that the show has endured. Most predominantly, the passing of James Avery, who played Uncle Phil. And the Shredder. He was the voice of the Shredder in the original 90s Turtles cartoon. And then they got really heavy. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was not a show that I watched in the 90s. In fact, I've never really watched the show from start to finish. I've caught episodes here and there. But I've just never sat down to watch the show from start to finish. I never watched it week to week when it was on. In fact, I remember in 4th grade coming into school one day and sitting down and Mindy Caldwell. If anybody out there knows Mindy, please let her know that I'm telling the story because it's positive. She sits down. In fact, I remember I'm right-handed and she was left-handed, and we were sat right next to each other, so we were always like elbowing each other. So Mindy, I remember one day comes in and sits down. And it wasn't just one day. This was like every week because Fresh Prince aired on Mondays, I believe. So every Tuesday she would come in and be like, "Hey, did you see the new episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air last night?" I'm like, "No, I don't watch that show." And now, looking back on this retrospective, I really wish that I did. I feel like I really missed out in a cultural experience, in a learning experience. I really missed out because I don't know if I should divulge this. I'm going to divulge this. I don't know if I should, but I'm going to. The community where I grew up. This is weird to talk about in a public forum. It makes me very uncomfortable, but it's also true. The community where I grew up. Oh man, this is hard to talk about. This is hard to say. I don't want anybody to think negatively of the people individually that I grew up with, but it was just it was the 90s. It was the 80s and the 90s. This was the common view, commonly shared viewpoints. And I feel like the majority of people have learned from their experiences. So where I grew up, was it was a racist community. It was a sexist community. It was a homophobic community. It was a xenophobic community. And that's kind of how I was raised. So to watch television shows that celebrated black culture, not just black culture, to watch television shows that celebrated a culture that wasn't the norm on television at the time, was just not something that we did. Since moving out of that community, I've had multiple experiences to learn and to grow and to explore other ideas and other cultures and accept people for who they are and not for who they're not. So here's why this is so difficult for me to talk about. It was first of all, it was just my experience. It was very black and white. This is, I feel like I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. I have since broken out of that idea and mentality. And when somebody holds to those ideas so hard, it's what is comfortable, it's what is familiar, it's what you were being surrounded with. So that's kind of all you know. You start to live in an insular life, right? You surround yourself by people who share those same ideas and values. And people that don't share those same ideas and values now become inferior, right? So on a certain level, yeah, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed to say that, you know, like that those were the ideas that I was raised with. So to watch a show, like we watched Family Matters, but Family Matters also didn't really delve into black culture. They didn't delve into the socio-political status that is, let's explore the idea of what it's like for someone who is black to be pulled over by a police officer. Fresh Prince did that. In Family Matters, the father, Carl Winslow, was the police officer. And yes, they did deal with race on Family Matters, but not the way that Fresh Prince did. Not the way that Fresh Prince did. Fresh Prince came at it with a whole new angle. And this was a cultural experience that I missed out on. This was a teaching opportunity. This was something that I could have been a part of in my youth. And this show could have helped me along the lines of saying, there's nothing wrong with other demographics of people. If there's a person in the world that doesn't look like you, doesn't think like you, doesn't act like you, that doesn't mean that they're wrong. They're perfect the way that they are. So a show like this, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, as it's being hailed as one of the greatest cultural it had such a great cultural impact at its time and lasting. It's now 30 years since the television show aired. It's been 30 years. So for me and Kim to sit on the couch and watch this reunion special of them sitting around talking about, like, they knew what they were doing, and yes, they wanted to be respectful of their culture and their heritage, and they didn't want to placate to their audience. Not just audience in general, but they didn't want to make false portrayals of the pride of what it means to be a person of color on television and to represent their people with dignity and respect. To hear them talk about that, the whole time I was thinking, like, I never got to experience that. I never got to go on this journey with those characters. And I felt this sense of loss of, like, wow, like, being raised in the community where I was raised and having the ideas that I was raised with, and thinking, like, oh, we don't watch those kinds of shows in our house. I regret that. And I can beat this dead horse as bloody to a pulp as I want to beat it. All of that is to say, this reunion special really was kind of a wake-up. It wasn't a wake-up call, but it was a beautiful reminder that there are important stories to be told. Even if it's in the guise of comedy, even if it's under the guise of, like, a wacky, silly. I mean, look at Carlton. I mean, like, that whole dance thing that he does, like, it's silly. It's become a pop culture icon for years. People, I mean, you walk into the room and say, "Hey, do the Carlton." Everybody knows what you're talking about. And that's really cool. That's really cool. So watching this special, and I love that it was more of a roundtable discussion. It wasn't, hey, let's get together and reenact scenes, or hey, let's together and tell the next chapter. It's 30 years later, or I guess it was on for 6 years, so now it's 24 years later, right? 24 years later, let's see what the gang is up to. No, I'm good. Let that story be its story. This reunion special was beautiful. And I didn't even touch on the fact of the original Aunt Viv. I think this is where I was going when I took that huge left turn, right? The actress who's playing the original Aunt Viv, she made it through 3 seasons. Again, this is information that I didn't really know. I wasn't privy to because I didn't watch the show. She was fired from the show because she and Will Smith, when she was pregnant, and she was the actor, when she was pregnant and she was having her child, giving birth to her child, and that whole thing. Apparently she had, you know what, I'm not going to give away the secrets of the show, of this reunion special, so go ahead and watch it yourself. All I want to say is that she had some really bad struggles in her life, and those struggles were grossly misinterpreted. And Will Smith, as a burgeoning early 20-something-year-old, didn't understand what she was going through, and he took it personally, and he said some nasty things about her. She said some nasty things about him, and it just deteriorated into an awful, awful situation where she eventually got fired from the show, and they recast her, and her life was essentially destroyed as a result of that. So to see her come back in a reunion special, and for them to open that can of worms publicly and discuss it. Wow. You guys, this is a really great special. I highly recommend, if you've watched the show, if you have not watched the show, if you caught an episode here or there throughout the years, it's fantastic on any level. Go watch it. I'm very interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. So that pretty much does it for all of our news topics today. We're now going to just jump in and take some of your live questions. So you've been firing in some live questions and comments all throughout the show. Let's see and check out what you have to say.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Live questions and comments throughout the show. Let's go ahead and start taking some of these. Our first comment is from Nora Colleen Fox, a very good friend of mine from college. And Nora Colleen, I'm just going to call you Colleen because that's how I know you. You know this. She says, do we need to also watch this on YouTube for you to get your ad revenue, or is viewing it on Facebook Live contributing? Just want to make sure that I'm supporting you in the way that it makes most sense for you. Oh, that's very considerate. Love that comment. Thank you, Colleen. Yeah. So it's not contributing to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this live streaming on Facebook, here's why I do this on Facebook Live. That's where the people are. If I start streaming on Facebook Live, people like yourself, Colleen, you will start to know, hey, Mike Brown is doing this thing. Let's check it out. You either like it or you don't like it. And both options are fine, but you're aware of it. And if you like it, you will probably, I assume you will probably like and share and subscribe to the YouTube channel and all that, which helps bolster things. If you don't like it, you probably won't like, but you probably won't subscribe, but you're still aware of it, right? You're aware that this is a thing that happens. In order for me to start earning ad revenue on YouTube, two things need to happen. One, I need a minimum of 1,000 subscribers. Two, I need a minimum of 4,000 hours of watched content. Currently, I'm at, I think it's 10 hours. I think I'm just over 10 hours of watched content on the channel, which I still have a long ways to go. I only have 240 subscribers. I need 1,000. I only have like 10 hours, but I need 4,000 hours. That's when I qualify to start earning ad revenue. And then from there, then, it's off to the races. So that's why I say, like, when I get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, this show will be moving from Facebook to YouTube. So, but this is just all an audience building thing. I'm not earning any money right now. It's going to be a long time before I start earning money. I'm still collecting unemployment checks, but I'm still working for the airline as much as they'll allow me. So I'm financially, I'm okay right now. I have a plan, and my plan is to devote all of my time here into this YouTube channel. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get the word out. This is all audience building right now. And then once I have my audience, once people start watching on Facebook, eventually they're going to go over to YouTube. That's my hope. That's what I think will happen. But yeah, so all of that. Thank you so much for the support and the love. Like, Colleen, I really appreciate that. I genuinely appreciate that because, I would love to make this my full-time job. Colleen goes on to say, sorry, it's ridiculous to me that they are making another movie in the same franchise called Scream. Did they just run out of ideas? Maybe. How are people going to talk about this? Oh, you mean the new Scream, not the original Scream? Yeah, let me go back into the article for a second. They point this out, that this has happened with other films. Okay, hold on one sec. Let me get this up. Cool. So they point this out that Ready for the official title of Scream 5? Here it is. Scream. This comes in a long line of legacy sequels, soft reboots, back to basics, horror titles, retaining the original franchise title, including works like Halloween, Ghostbusters, and of course, Final Destination. So, I mean, this is not a new thing that has been happening. I mean, we see this happen over and over and over again. But I agree with you. This is ridiculously confusing. If you say Scream, everybody just goes back to the original. Was it 1996? I think is when Scream first came out. Hey, do you want to go see Scream? I saw it like 2 decades ago. Why do we need to go see it again? No, the new Scream. Oh, they're re-releasing Scream? No. It's a remake. It's called Scream. Oh, it's a remake. No, it's a sequel. So it's Scream 5? No. It's Scream. You are exactly right. It doesn't make any sense. I'm all for the whole sequel. This is, I've talked about this before. I'm all for sequels, reboots, remakes, all that stuff. If it makes sense. Like I was all for Bill and Ted Face the Music as a sequel, as a threequel, I guess, really. I didn't really care for the movie, but I was on board with the idea. I was like, oh, this is a great idea. This is a wonderful story to tell. Bill and Ted haven't written a song that's going to save the universe yet. What a great story to tell. Of course. Yeah, sure. Why not? So in that case, I'm all for it. I'm on board. Are people running out of ideas? No. No, they're not. And this is why. Go with me here. Hop on iTunes. Go to the Google Play Store. Go to Netflix. Open up Apple TV Plus. There is so much original content. The reason that sequels and reboots and remakes get so much hubbub and hullabaloo is because it's piggybacking off of the success of what came before. Scream was an original idea. Scream 2, not as original, but it's the sequel. Scream 3, Scream 4, and now Scream 5. It doesn't seem like an original idea anymore. But if it's a creative story that the filmmakers feel A, needs to be told, or B, want to be told, if they feel like this could be successful. Because here's the thing, nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Nobody does that. Sometimes bad movies happen, and it's not always the script. Sometimes it's the director. Sometimes it's studio involvement. Sometimes it's the acting. Sometimes it's a combination of all this stuff, right? Nobody ever really sets out to make a bad movie. Sometimes it just happens. So whenever they start making a film, it's usually a decent idea, or at least it's a good creative direction that they want to go in, right? Enough of a good idea that the studio is like, okay, we'll back this idea with $10 million or however much it costs to make that particular film. The Avengers is notorious for this. I mean, the Avengers, it's a different vehicle. It's a whole different animal because they're building a universe, and that's the premise of this. It's not just another sequel for the sake of another sequel. They're building this whole big, huge universe, right? But let's just use Avengers for case in point. So, the reason that, you see Avengers 4 come out, Endgame. Granted, it was like a part 1, part 2 story. It was the culmination of everything. But again, bad example, but let's just use it as an example. It's conceivable that somebody would see the marketing for Avengers 4, Avengers Endgame, and say, oh, another Avengers movie? Didn't we just have one last year? Why do we need another Avengers film? Can't you do something original? Well, people are. You don't hear about them because those original ideas aren't in the public consciousness. And also, for Avengers Endgame to make money, you have to advertise the crap out of it. You have to advertise the crap out of it. That movie it cost $250 million to make that movie. That means you have to spend another $250 million to advertise your movie. Your marketing budget has to be equal to your production budget, because if it's not, you can make a masterpiece that costs so much money to make, and it could be the best film anyone has ever seen. Could be, but if nobody knows about it, or if maybe a handful of people know about it, so you have to double your production budget just to get people to go see the movie, right? And for it to break even, you have to put so much money into it that enough people are going to go see it that A, you're going to pay for the production budget, B, you're going to pay for the marketing budget, and C, you're going to pay for the theaters, the exhibition theaters, to show the movie. So it's on average 1.5. So now if you've spent $500 million to make the movie and advertise the movie, now you need another 1.5. Of the usually of the production budget. Usually. So now we're talking what? Another 250, $750 million, like somewhere in through there, right? That's a lot of money just to break even. And then, again, everybody, it's called show business, not show friends. So the filmmakers are in this business to make money, right? So have they run out of creative ideas? No. There's so much original content in the world, but you don't hear about it because we have movies like The Avengers, Scream. Scream is very popular. It's taking over news articles right now because it's the new thing. And it's something that people have heard of before. It's the new flavor of the month. There's a really interesting movie out on PVOD right now called Love and Monsters. It looks fantastic. Nobody's ever heard of it because it's an original property. It's an original idea. It was never released in theaters, so they didn't need to spend the huge marketing budget on it. But because the PVOD is the price tag is $20 just to rent it, you can buy it for $25 or you can rent it for $20. I still haven't seen it because I don't want to pay $20 to rent it. I don't know if I want to own it, so I don't want to pay $25. You see this conundrum? So, I mean, it's an ongoing cycle. There's more original content now than there ever used to be. So that's kind of where I stand with that. But yeah, I do agree with you on the title of Scream. It's dumb. Just call it Scream 5. Come on. Julian Lagill. How are you, sir? Julian was an improv student of mine, and now we're friends. Julian, how are you, sir? Julian says, but I have seen in you one of the most human people I've ever met. Oh, Julian, thank you. And that makes me proud to even know you. You show love to everyone, and that's magical. Wow. Well, Julian, thank you so much. I think this was specifically in response to my comments about the Fresh Prince and my struggles growing up in a community that was not accepting of not just black culture, but minority culture. It was very xenophobic, very racist, very homophobic, all those things. And I had to train myself out of that. It's embarrassing to admit in a public forum. I mean, I've admitted this to multiple people on a personal one-to-one basis, but to admit it in a public forum it's embarrassing. And and I don't want it to reflect. Here's another thing is I don't want it to reflect the people who are there now. That may have been the way it was in the early 90s. I hope that's not the way it is now. I haven't lived there in over 20 years. So I hope that culture has changed. And, we change and develop as human beings. We learn as we go. And unfortunately, we sometimes we have to take the hard knocks. Sometimes we have to take the hard knocks. Sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way. Sometimes we have to be called out. Sometimes we have to be called out, and it's hurtful. And if your pride gets in the way, you're going to dig your heels deeper into the mire of ignorance and just say, I am what I am. Well, yeah, true, you are. But that doesn't mean that you can't change, that you can't learn, that you can't grow, that you can't experience. I often say, make a very tongue-in-cheek response sometimes and say, well, blah, blah, blah. Like I'll make all these bullet points and then I'll end it by saying, yeah, but what do I know? I've only traveled the world and experienced new ideas and cultures and blah, 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 whatever. So Julian, to hear you say that, and coming from you, sir, my goodness, what a testament. Thank you so much. That's really kind. That's really sweet of you to say. I just feel that it's important that everybody show everybody respect. And that was a lesson that took me a long time to learn. It took me a long time to learn. I used to be really hardcore into offensive comedy, not in terms of like language, but in terms of content. Like, what is it that they're saying? Shock humor. And to a certain point, yeah, I still enjoy shock humor. I think it's very funny. I think Sacha Baron Cohen is kind of a genius in that regard. But there were things that I would do in my personal life that I would consider to be shocking, and I would do things just to get a reaction out of other people, even if it meant being offensive towards various demographics. It took me a long time to learn that was not okay. I need to change my behavior. Saying certain things, acting a certain way, giving certain depictions, not okay. So we just need to learn. We need to experience. We need to make friends with people who don't share our same ideas or backgrounds or anything like that. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. Last comment here is from Julian. Julian says, what would you think is a modern and relevant show as The Fresh Prince once was? Ooh, woo! Woo! Schitt's Creek. The show Schitt's Creek, I think, is that show. It's hilariously funny, but it also touches very respectful. Not just respectfully, it treats the LGBTQ community in a way that is normalized, in a way that we should be treating everyone. The reason that people have weird, crazy ideas about people that don't look or sound like them is because they've never spent time around those people. And if they have spent time around those people, it's because if they have spent time around those people and still maintain those ideas, it's because they haven't given that human being an opportunity to show them who they really are on the inside, what really matters. People cling to these ideas that protect them from change so hard that they're willing to sacrifice the lives of other people just so that they can feel comfortable, right? So a show like Schitt's Creek is beautiful, completely beautiful. It's hilarious. It's entertaining. It's funny. It's interesting. It's thought-provoking. It is endearing. It has heart. Is it a perfect show? No. I mean, story-wise, narratively, there's things that I would have done differently if I was in the writer's room. But who cares? It doesn't matter. It's not my show. It's a beautiful show. And season 6 swept the Emmys. Every single category it was nominated for, it won. Every single category. I don't know if that's ever happened. It may have happened before, but I don't know if it has happened before. It's a beautiful show. I think everybody should see it. I think I think that would be kind of the modern day equivalent of the cultural change and um, acknowledgement for now of what like the Fresh Prince brought. Excuse me for one moment. I just got a message. Let me put you guys on hold. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna check out this message and see if it's appropriate to read on air. I will be right back in 30 seconds. Don't go anywhere. All right, you guys, I am back. We have one more comment. I'm not sure because this was sent as a private message. There was somebody watching the show who had something to contribute, and I don't think that they want this to be public knowledge as to where it came from, but I do feel it appropriate to read. As I said, it was sent in a private message, so the identity is being kept confidential. And this person says, just thought you might be interested that Family Matters did touch on a lot of subjects as the kids aged. I couldn't find the whole scene, and they sent a link, a YouTube link to a video from the show Family Matters. I couldn't find the whole scene, but basically, Eddie comes home and is telling his dad, Carl Winslow, that he didn't do anything wrong at all and was racially profiled by two police officers in his precinct, and Carl defends them. But then he goes and has he defended the actions of the police officers to his son, but then later in the scene, Carl Winslow confronts both police officers, and they were white. Important delineation, they were white. He confronts them about racially profiling his son. So yes, you are correct in that Family Matters did touch on this stuff, but not to the same level that that Fresh Prince did. The Winslows were just kind of the family next door. They were your everyday average family. And you know, I guess an argument could be made is that that is how that was Family Matters contribution to normalizing race relationships in the United States in a sitcom form. That argument most definitely can be made. They did do, they did have episodes where they touched on this stuff. And, I mentioned that earlier. And this particular episode that you sent with this clip, and I have seen this clip before. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, they did delve into this a little bit. So thank you for sending it. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. And that's I think that's the lesson here, right? Is that wherever we are, there's always room for improvement. Wherever we are, whether we're on this spectrum or this side of the spectrum, that side of the spectrum, wherever we happen to be, if we're up or down, there's always room for improvement. There's always room for growth. We're not perfect. Human beings are not perfect. We're not perfect at everything that we do. And I think that I feel like that is the perfect end to the show, to the segment today. We got really sentimental and heavy in some of our topics. Good. Sometimes we need to. This is why I always end every show by saying speak kind words to each other, because there's always room for improvement, you guys. This has been a fascinating discussion and conversation. It has been difficult for me on a personal level. But I think, I don't know, these are sometimes the conversations that we need to have. Sometimes these are the conversations that we need to have. Sometimes we need to check in with ourselves. We need to check in with others, because there's always room for improvement, no matter what our endeavor is, no matter who's watching, no matter, and that's integrity. Right there, that is the definition of integrity. It is adhering to the rules when nobody's watching. Not even adhering to the rules. It's doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. That is integrity. So I think it becomes incumbent upon all of us to do our due diligence, to listen to another human being, to take into consideration struggles and hardships of other people, of other demographics that may not look like us. Everywhere. Let's learn from each other. Let's speak kind words to each other. You guys, now I feel cheap for saying if you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really like this video, click share. There she is. Because I think that is exactly what share would want you to do, right? Yeah, so we're going to end on a heavier note this week. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. I know it got a little heavy, but I think this was good. I think this was good. This is good for me. It was good for me. Was it good for you? Thank you guys so much for watching. We live in a weird, crazy world. Everybody has their own thoughts and ideas and opinions, and sometimes those thoughts and opinions clash. So if you have an opportunity to speak kind words to each other, if you have an opportunity to perform a random act of kindness, please take those opportunities. And in the words of Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other. You guys, I'll see you on Monday.